With Hall of Famers like Allen Iverson, Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, and Ray Allen, the 1996 NBA draft has proven to be one of the greatest ever. At the time, it seemed unfortunate that San Antonio didn't have a pick that year. Prior to the 1996 draft, in February that year, the Spurs traded their lone pick to the Knicks for Charles Smith and Monty Williams. Ultimately, the Knicks ended up with the 18th pick, with which they selected John Wallace.
Ewing slow getting up. Wallace. Oh my! That's a rookie doing that.
Had San Antonio retained their pick, they would have been able to, and probably would have, drafted Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who the Cavs took with the 20th pick. Ultimately, the Spurs would well and truly make up for missing out on the 1996 draft the following year when they landed the number 1 pick. They used it on future Hall of Famer Tim Duncan, who would go on and become one of the greatest players of all time, delivering San Antonio 5 rings over the course of his 19-season NBA career in 1999, 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2014.
7 years, man. We're back. It's been a while, team.
Understandably, it wasn't long after Duncan's departure from the league in July 2016 that the Spurs retired his jersey number 21 in December that year. Duncan wore the number his whole career, which he did in honor of his brother-in-law who introduced him to basketball. Duncan first wore the number during his college career at Wake Forest, representing the Demon Deacons from between 1993 and 1997.
Still a loose ball, and Duncan comes up with it behind the back to keep it going. My goodness! Wow!
Duncan then wore 21 for his entire NBA career. Prior to the number 21 being retired by the Spurs, just 11 other players had also worn the number for the franchise, 8 in the NBA and 3 during the team's years in the ABA from 1967 to 1976. The number 21 was first officially worn by Jeff Congdon back during the 71-72 season, when the team were known as the Dallas Chaparrals. Later, a number of noteworthy players would wear the number before Duncan, such as Alvin Robertson, who the Spurs selected with the 7th pick of the 1984 draft. Ultimately, he'd represent the team from 1984 to May 1989 before being traded to the Bucks. During his time in San Antonio, Robinson proved to be one of the best defensive players in the league, leading the NBA in steals in 1986 and 1987, and being named both the Most Improved Player and Defensive Player of the Year in 1986. Realistically, had Duncan not taken the number and made it iconic, it may have eventually been retired in Robertson's honor someday, assuming they were willing to overlook his off-court issues. Another significant player who also wore the number 21, which they did right before Duncan, was fellow Hall of Famer Dominique Wilkins. All up, Wilkins only played a single season with the team, but it would prove to be a fateful one for both Wilkins and the Spurs franchise. After playing for the University of Georgia, representing the Bulldogs from 1979 to 1982, Wilkins nominated for the 1982 NBA draft, for which he was selected with the 3rd pick by the Jazz. But Wilkins was reluctant to actually sign with Utah, given that he didn't want to leave Georgia, and that the team expected him to play power forward. Ultimately, Wilkins and the Jazz could never find common ground, and he was traded to the Hawks in September 1982. All up, Wilkins would end up playing 15 seasons in the NBA from between 1982 and 1999. The majority of his success that ensured his place in the Hall of Fame was in Atlanta, who he represented for 11.5 seasons, before the team traded him to the Clippers in February 1994. As of September 2025, Wilkins holds the distinctions of having played the most games for the Hawks with 882 and the most minutes at 32,545. He also scored the most points with 23,292. After finishing out the 94-95 season with the Clippers, Wilkins signed as a free agent with the Celtics in July 1994. Despite being in his mid-30s, Wilkins still performed at a high level in Boston, averaging around 30 minutes a play, scoring under just 18 points, grabbing 5 rebounds, and dishing out 2 assists per contest.
Brown away with it. Awfully good in transition as Brown finds Dominique for the reverse.
He still has some creativity as well that time.
Although Wilkins had signed a 3-year contract with the Celtics, he also had a buyout clause, which he then used to pursue opportunities internationally, signing with the Greek team Panathinaikos on a 2-year, $7 million contract in August 1995. Wilkins won 2 titles with the team, the EuroLeague and the Greek Cup, before returning to the NBA when he signed with the Spurs after he had a falling out with Panathinaikos and the team terminated his contract. After his lone season with the Spurs, Wilkins again left the NBA in June 1997, signing with the international team Fortitudo Bologna. After winning the 1998 Italian Cup with the team, Wilkins returned to the NBA one last time, signing with the Magic in February 1999, which teamed him up with his brother Gerald. Though, now in his late 30s, Wilkins' impact was limited. Ultimately, his illustrious career came to a close after the Magic waived him in June 1999. Obviously, when it comes to Wilkins jerseys, the ones from his time with the Hawks are the most valuable and sought after, whether they're game worn or if they were used during one of the 5 dunk contests that he participated in from between 1984 and 1986, then in 1988 and 1990, especially the contests that he actually won during the 1985 and 1990 All-Star weekends, respectively.
So Dominique Wilkins of the Atlanta Hawks, the new 1985 Slam Dunk champion.
In terms of scarcity, jerseys from Wilkins' time in Los Angeles are the rarest, as he only played 25 games for the Clippers. Given that he only played a single season with the team, ones from his time in Boston are somewhat scarce too. All up, Wilkins played 81 games for the Celtics, 77 in the regular season and 4 in the playoffs. By far, the one Wilkins Celtics jersey with the most inherent value is the very last one he ever wore for the team. Ultimately, after Boston finished 8th in the Eastern Conference, their 94-95 campaign ended in the first round of the 1995 playoffs after being eliminated by the Magic in the best-of-5 series, 3-1. That fourth and final game took place on the 5th of May at Boston Garden, and it was the very last official game at the iconic arena as the Celtics would relocate to the Fleet Center, later renamed TD Garden, in September 1995. For the contest, Wilkins scored 22 points and grabbed 18 rebounds, but beyond the impressive stats, he also made history. Although Orlando's Horace Grant holds the distinction of scoring the last ever official point in the arena, Wilkins was the last ever member of the Celtics to score in Boston Garden after going to the line in the dying seconds of the game.
Instruct your players. If Wilkins would miss the second free throw, he drains the first.
Ultimately, jerseys from Wilkins' time in San Antonio hold significant sentimental value for both Wilkins fans and the Spurs franchise. Headed into the 96-97 season, the Spurs had assembled a decent roster with a solid supporting cast around franchise player, future Hall of Famer David Robinson, such as Avery Johnson, Chuck Person, and Sean Elliott.
Dale Ellis behind the back to Sean! Whoa!
At the time, the Spurs had had a successful previous season, finishing second in the Western Conference with 59 wins and just 23 losses, though they were later eliminated in the second round by the Jazz, 4-2 in the playoffs. So, the only major alteration that the team did to their roster during the 96 offseason was sign Vernon Maxwell in August 1996. But despite having put together a championship-caliber team, the Spurs were soon decimated by injuries. Robinson injured his lower back during the preseason in October. Also, at around the same time as Robinson's injury, Person needed to have surgery, which would end up ruling him out for the entire upcoming season. Furthermore, Elliott was secretly dealing with a kidney disease, which, along with other ailments, would limit him to just 39 games. It was because of the loss of Person that the Spurs decided to sign Wilkins in October. Ultimately, Robinson would return in December and play 6 games before breaking his foot in a game against the Heat, ruling him out for the rest of the season. Also in December, after 18 games with just 3 wins and 15 losses, the Spurs coach, Bob Hill, was fired and replaced with the general manager at the time, Greg Popovich, who, years later, would go on and helm the team for all 5 of their championships from between 1999 and 2014.
Everybody in here knows that everybody's got a piece of this thing. Kawhi thinks he did it all by himself.
Understandably, it was at this point that the Spurs decided to give up on pursuing a championship and focus on landing the number 1 pick for the 1997 draft, by losing. And ultimately, the Spurs would end up with 20 wins and 62 losses. Obviously, the big payoff of losing the season would be securing the number 1 pick of the upcoming draft and selecting Duncan. But there was another big upside to San Antonio's failed campaign. Unfortunately, unlike most Hall of Famers, Wilkins never had a farewell tour whereby a player announces their plans to retire at the end of the upcoming season and are lavished with gifts wherever they go for their last games in the league. Ultimately, although the 98-99 season was officially Wilkins' last, it was far from a fitting farewell for the legend. Not only was the season shortened to 50 regular season games due to a lockout that spanned from the 1st of July 1998 and the 20th of January 1999, but with Wilkins now pushing 40, he was a shadow of his old self. All up, he played 28 games with the Magic, 27 in the regular season and just 1 in the playoffs. And with the exception of a few instances where Wilkins showed glimpses of his greatness, his time in Orlando was largely underwhelming, as he played around just 9 minutes a game, averaging only 5 points a contest. Conversely, during his time in San Antonio, Wilkins was still playing at a relatively high level. Also, the fact that the Spurs were no longer prioritizing wins led to major playing time for Wilkins. And despite being in his late 30s, he didn't disappoint as he accumulated a decent highlight reel during his brief time in San Antonio.
What a move by Wilkins. Oh, that was amazing.
All up, Wilkins appeared in 63 games for the Spurs, averaging around 18 points, grabbing 6 rebounds and dishing out 2 assists in around 30 minutes of play per contest, as the 96-97 season served as a much better send-off following his Hall of Fame career than his largely forgettable time in Orlando. Because, while team officials were actively trying to tank, Wilkins was, true to form, giving the franchise his all.
I thought it had to be somebody else, but Dominique right there.
8-point lead, 8 minutes left. Dominique!
That's Dominique of old.
From days of yore, Dominique
Yes,
Wilkins.
indeed. With that little shuffle move and then explosion into the air.
He still has some creativity as well.